Hey guys, welcome back to King of Random Cooking. Today we're whipping up a batch of DIY survival style fire starters using items you can probably find around the house. The materials for this project are pretty simple. I just went down to the grocery store and picked up some of these cotton facial cleansing pads, and I'm going to be melting down and reusing this old candle I've had sitting around, but if you really wanted to, you could use a box of crayons. Now, I recently went to a survival seminar where they were selling flint and steel fire starters. The idea is you strike the two together, it makes sparks, and you can use that to ignite the tinder of your survival fire. The thing is, the units they were selling were anywhere from $20 to $40, which I think is a little on the high end. But I did get one of these things. This is a ferrocerium rod, which is basically a glorified version of the little flint you find in a thumb strike lighter. Now, ferrocerium is a synthetic alloy combining a lot of different metals, and the idea is you take some kind of a steel striker and run it down the side and it produces hot sparks. Now, I don't have any steel strikers, but I do have an old hacksaw blade, and I found that these things work just as well. Now, the first thing we need to do to start making these wax-impregnated cotton fire starters is to simply throw our candle in a pot and melt it down. You could also just throw it in the microwave for about 4 minutes. That seems to work just as well. So here we are, guys, our wax is completely melted. We've got quite a bit of it here. It's actually a lot more than we need. So for convenience, we're gonna pour some out into a plate so it's about 1/4 of an inch deep, and then we're gonna use that to soak our cotton pads for just a second on each side. And we are gonna need a place to let our wax fire starters cool down, and ideally we'd use wax paper or aluminum foil. I couldn't find any, so we're just using a Ziploc bag. All right, here we go. Let's get started with these white cloud cotton squares. These are 100% cotton and typically used by women for applying makeup and cleansers. Now what we're gonna do is take these pads and dip them into the wax just so they get a light coating on either side. And it would be good to have a pair of tweezers, but I couldn't find any of those either, so I'm using a fork. All right, here we go. Test number 1. We're just gonna dip a little bit on that side there, flip it over, a little bit of that side, and pretty much call it done. We'll set that off to the side on our Ziploc bag to cool down. Number 2. Whoops. I guess that'll work too. You could just pop them in and scoop them out. I think the key is we just don't want to have too much wax on there. Now for variety, I picked up some of these cotton rounds. These are also 100% cotton and used for facial cleansing. These are large circular discs, and these are the kind of things I've seen other preppers using on the internet as well. Put that guy in, just enough to get the wax in there, and drip it off. This one here, I'm just gonna try one side. We're just gonna let that soak for a second and then take it out. So it's wax infused on one side, cotton on the other, but you can already see that wax soaking through. And while I was picking up all these cotton pads, I couldn't resist picking up a box of tampons as well. These things are mostly made of cotton, so we may as well throw them in the mix as well. Beautiful. That looks amazing. All right, guys, it's been about 5 minutes. Our wax has cooled down and it looks like our fire starters are ready for testing. Now, just for comparative purposes, I have some of the original cotton and some of the wax infused cotton, just so we can see the difference in the burn times. So test number 1, we're just gonna see if we can use some sparks to actually ignite this cotton at all. So I'm just gonna fluff this up so it exposes a little more surface area, making it easier to light. And we're gonna start a timer and see how long that burns. Let's light it up. First try. Cotton's burning. You can see that little fluff took off in no time flat. I don't see a whole lot of flame because this cotton is compressed. There is some flame down here, but it's burning very quietly. Okay, we're getting some more orange flame up here. And I suppose if you lifted this up off the ground a little bit, you can get it to burn a little bit hotter to start your fire. So at this point, most of the pad has been consumed. We're just gonna wait until the flame actually goes out. And there's the last little bit of flame there. We'll stop that, we'll call it 50 seconds. So we got about 50 seconds, maybe a minute on the top end with one of these cotton facial cleansing pads, but that was with no wax. So let's try the wax infused version and see if there's any difference. This pad here has the wax on one side and the cotton on the other, so we're just gonna fluff up the cotton side the same as we did before to catch the spark. All right, got it on the first try last time. Let's see if we can do that again. There we go. And it's off. The thing I noticed about these flat pads is the flame doesn't get very high. Everything's so compressed, and I think the air is having a hard time getting to it. So what we really need to do is stick some sticks underneath it so it has a little bit of leverage. That's a healthier flame than we saw in the last one for sure. I mean, even if I flatten that back out again, the first thing I notice is the flame is a lot more orange and a lot healthier. And it seems to be burning quite a bit slower. We're already at 43 seconds and we haven't even burned through 1/8 of that pad yet. So we just crossed 7 minutes and 30 seconds. You can see our pad is charred now and the flame has moved over to just the edges. So I think we're running out of the wax. I think it's kind of on its last legs here. I wouldn't expect to see more than about another minute of burn time, but that's pretty good. Okay, so there's a crossover for 10 minutes. It's been over 10 minutes, guys, and the flame is still going. Now at about 9 minutes, I flipped the pad over and found that the cotton on the bottom hadn't burned yet. So once that was exposed to the air, it took off and gave us another full minute of good burn time. We are coming up on 11 minutes here, and we've still got a little flame going. It's almost gone. There's the 11-minute crossover, and that flame is just about gone. I think this is it. 5, 4, 3, 2, and it's gone. Stop. 11 minutes and 17 seconds. So we lit our cotton pad and it burned for 50 seconds. We lit our wax infused pad and it burned for 11 minutes and 17 seconds. So looking at the comparison here, it looks like that little bit of wax increases the burn time 13.5 times. That's pretty dramatic, especially in a survival situation. Now, in addition to using feminine hygiene products, I also tried dipping some wax cotton balls as well as some paper towel. The wax cotton balls work great because you can split them in half, fluff out a little bit of the cotton and strike it off. The paper towel, not so much. The wax is a great fuel, but it's a terrible tinder and it acts as a barrier, preventing the sparks from getting to the cotton. So to get the best use out of these fire starters, we need to leave a little bit of white cotton exposed somewhere that we can use as an initial starter. Now this disc I coated on both sides and we found that the wax acts as a barrier and prevents it from igniting. So in order to get this to light off, I think we need to snap it in half and expose some of those cotton fibers on the inside, rough them up, and get them to a position where they can capture a spark and hold on to it. You can even break them into pieces and use them for multiple fire starters. There we go. So guys, good news, these wax fire starters are working really well. One question on my mind is how waterproof are they? What would happen if we took one, soaked it in a glass of water, and then broke it apart and tried to start it? Would it act any differently? It's like making tea. Had this soaking for about 60 seconds in a glass of water. Now if we break it open and expose some of those cotton fibers, let's see if we can get it to light off. It is a little damp, I can feel that it's moist. Let's see how that affects the performance. All right, here we go. First try. And there we go. Despite being soaked in a glass of water for 60 seconds, it still lit off on the first try. That is pretty cool. There we go. That feels better. So guys, based on our experience here today, this is what we've learned. We found that burning cotton by itself works really well, but it burns in a flash and doesn't produce a whole lot of heat. But if you take a little bit of wax from something like melted crayons or a melted candle, you can increase the amount of time it burns by about 1,300%. And not only that, but you get a lot stronger and hotter flame as well. We found that soaking one side of our pad in wax works better than soaking both sides because the wax acts as a barrier to any sparks flying in, making it a lot more difficult to light the tinder. It's very important that we keep part of our tinder, that white cotton fluff, so we have something to fluff up to catch a spark and cause it to ignite. We dipped our fire starters in water and let them soak for about 60 seconds and found that as long as we could crack them open and fluff up some of the wax-infused cotton on the inside, we could still get them to ignite. We also tried a wide variety of different cotton materials from facial cleansing pads to cotton balls and found that they all seem to work really well. Although I can't recommend using tampons because for some reason it just feels a little wrong. So there you have it, guys. That's how to turn ordinary household items into improvised survival tinder that'll burn over 10 times longer and get your fire going a lot faster. Thanks for joining me for this experiment, and I'll be looking for you in the next one. Talk to you then. Apparently wind resistant as well.